Hello, my name is Blossoms and welcome to another Genshin Impact video, and today we've got another not meta build guide for you guys, and today we're going to be doing a hybrid Fischl build. Now for those of you who are new here, the not meta build series is where I take a character and I build them in maybe not the most optimal way, but a way that I find interesting or cool. But before we get into the build, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it really helps me out and I deeply appreciate it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about this hybrid Fischl build. Before we get into this actual build, I do have to admit something in the way that this is basically just how Mihoyo wants you to build Fischl. What I mean by this is the fact that we have Mitternacht's Waltz, her specialty bow, and it focuses on physical damage and normal attacks as well as her elemental skill damage, which is kind of what we're going to be doing here. We're going to be doing something to where Oz is dealing good damage and her normal attacks are still dealing good damage, and the bow was definitely an inspiration for this. However, I don't have the bow and we are still going to be building her in that way, and it's going to be pretty cool, and it's actually a bit more effective than you might think. So before we get into the build, we actually need to know a little bit about Fischl and how she works. And Fischl is ultimately one of the best off-field kind of like support DPS characters in the game. She can deal pretty much all of her damage off of the field, but this build is going to be focusing on dealing damage on the field and off the field, kind of an in-between, because a lot of the ways that people build Fischl is to either go really in on her normal attack and deal really like big normal attack numbers in quick succession because she has a very quick normal attack combo, or to just really lean into Oz dealing as much damage as possible. And this build is definitely going to be focusing on doing both of those. So we need to know how her kit works in its entirety. Her normal attacks here aren't anything special. As I said, they are pretty quick though, and they do have good modifiers. One other interesting thing about her normal attacks here is that the third, fourth, and fifth hit, if you end her combo on any of those hits, all have like kind of like a special animation afterward. It's pretty cool for Fischl, and a lot of people don't know about that, so I wanted to mention it here. Her elemental skill is to summon Oz, and it becomes an electro turret that just intermittently deals damage to random enemies, and that changes with constellations, and we'll go over those as well. She also has this elemental burst that turns her into Oz, and she can go through enemies dealing electro damage, and whenever that's over, it leaves Oz on the field to continue as a turret. So whenever his duration is up on the elemental skill, which only has like 10 seconds here on a 25-second cooldown, you can basically keep him up indefinitely or at like a 5-second downtime, just because you can use the elemental burst whenever he leaves to bring him back on the field and also deal additional damage. She also has these passives here, the first one being admittedly useless. You can shoot Oz with a charge shot to deal AoE electro damage, and it's kind of whatever. But the next one here is actually pretty important. Whenever an electro-related elemental reaction happens when Oz is on the field, you deal electro damage to equal to 80% of Fischl's attack, which is really good, and one of the best parts about Fischl. And its scaling off attack is actually very important, and we're actually going to talk about that in the constellation section right now. Her C1 here is basically whenever you deal a normal attack, you deal an additional hit that does 22% of Fischl's attack. And you're going to see a recurring theme here where basically all of these are going to scale off of Fischl's attack, and that's why her attack is going to be important. Her C2 here isn't an exception. Basically, your Knight Rider deals additional 200% of your attack as damage and increases its AoE by 50%. Her C4 here deals 222% of her attack as electro damage, and then also regenerates 20% of her HP. And her C6 here basically Oz now attacks with you and deals 30% of Fischl's attack as electro damage. So previously what this means is Oz just kind of attacks people randomly, but when you have C6, he actually attacks whoever you're attacking with an additional 30% of her attack as electro damage. So you can see her attack is actually a very important stat, and that is going to matter for how you're probably going to build your Fischl, and we'll get into that as we go into the artifacts and the weapons. So for this build, the most effective way to ensure your Fischl is dealing good electro damage and good physical damage is to go with the 4-piece Pale Flame set here. And you not only get the 25% physical damage, but you also get an attack buff whenever your elemental skill hits an opponent, which is going to be happening all of the time with Fischl. And not to mention, you get an 100% increased effect of the 2-piece set, meaning you get a 50% physical damage increase with this set, which allows you to run an electro goblet. So normally a lot of people would run like a physical goblet with like the physical set or an Electro Goblet with like an Electro set, but if you combine them here, this is the way you're going to be able to deal good physical damage and good electro damage. So then that way we have 50% physical damage bonus as well as a 46.6% electro damage bonus, which is pretty nice. Set alternatives for this, of course, you can mix and match the Pale Flame with something like Thundering Fury or 2-piece Pale Flame, 2-piece Bloodstain, but it's not nearly going to be as effective as just the 4-piece Pale Flame for a hybrid Fischl build. As for the main stats you're going to be going for here is, of course, attack percent. As we have iterated, that is very important. Electro damage bonus, and then crit rate or crit damage, whichever is going to get you to that best ratio. When it comes to substats for these artifacts, of course, things like crit rate and crit damage are going to be the most important, followed by attack percent, and then cherries on top are going to be things like energy recharge and elemental mastery. Elemental mastery because, of course, it's just going to be dealing additional damage with Oz, whether he's off or on the field. It's going to be very helpful, and energy recharge is just nice to make sure you're getting Oz consistently, but really you're going to be focusing on crit rate and crit damage the most, as that is going to help you out. All right, and before we move on to the weapons, I'll show you guys each one of my artifacts just so you know what I'm using for this build. When it comes to weapons for this particular build, as I mentioned, the Mitternacht's Waltz is essentially built for this kind of build and is probably going to be the best or one of the best options for her. However, you will be happy to know you still have plenty of options even if you're like me and don't have the Mitternacht's Waltz. Things like the Amos bow, the rust, and the compound bow are all going to be excellent options for this hybrid Fischl build. Now, I'll be using the Amos bow just because it is a stat stick giving me a bunch of base attack and a bunch of attack percentage, which is really going to be helping out with those attack percent scalers, not to mention the fact that it increases our normal and charge attack damage. So this is just really good for the build in general. Of course, things like the rust aren't bad either. It has lower base attack and attack percent, but you do get a much higher normal attack modifier. So your normal attacks are actually going to be inching out a little bit over the Amos bow, but overall the Amos bow will deal more damage because all those things that scale off of her attack, and just Oz will be dealing more damage in general. But this is still a really good option, and of course the compound bow is actually an excellent option as well because it increases your attack and your attack speed, as well as gives you some additional physical damage bonus, so those normal attacks aren't going to be slouching at all. This is a pretty sweet option and actually a very fun option just because Fischl already has a really fast attack combo, and increasing the speed of it even by this little bit is so nice feeling. I gotta admit, I really do like the way the compound bow feels. Alright, and before we get on to the showcase, I'll briefly show off the attributes of my Fischl. I do have her at level 70 here, 2100 attack, 23 elemental mastery, which was higher. Same with my crit rate and crit damage. We're at 51% and 123% crit damage. I do wish these were higher, but it's a-okay for just this kind of showcase. But these definitely should be higher for a much stronger build, of course. But we do have 46% electro damage bonus as well as 25% physical damage bonus, which is of course going to be 50% whenever we actually get her elemental skill going. All right, and we're gonna show off here on the homie Masanori real quick, and I've given her some crit rate food just for consistency's sake, and of course I get hit. You see we deal 11k there on the summon, and our actual hits here aren't too bad if he doesn't block them. You see our last one there is about 50 to 100, and when we actually combine her with some of the allies here, she really starts to pop off. So I've got like basically all the homies that can help her here. Just to show off her damage, you see we kind of melt this guy once we actually get everybody going here. And she just deals a ton of damage combined with all these reactions happening. I really do like kind of the fireworks style comp here, and then getting something like Superconduct is also really nice for her, just to increase that, that physical damage. And, well, I was going to go another round with her popping off there, but it seems Masanori couldn't hold up. Let's go ahead and go over to a boss just so you can see how fast she can delete that as well. All right, so we're at the PreRegis Fine just to absolutely slap him around real quick. Let's go ahead and get him down a bit. Get everybody's burst going. Summon Oz and just pop off. And I also want you to keep in mind that Fischl's critical damage here isn't even that high. and we can still pretty much delete things. Of course, we're pairing her with everybody there, and these characters are pretty well built as well. But I just kind of wanted to show you guys that this can delete stuff, and her normal attack damage is getting increased by somebody like Rosaria, and her electro damage is still very, very solid, and all the additional damage you get to do when reacting with a bunch of characters like this is very good. And I really do like this build. It makes me really wish I had Mitternoch's Waltz, because it definitely improves like this build in terms of how it just works, increasing Oz's damage and physical damage along with their normal attack damage. It's just very good for this particular hybrid build, but you can still, as you can see, make it work without it. So that's going to be it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you think about a hybrid Fischl. If you're going to build your Fischl like this, if it intrigues you at all, maybe you got some spare Pale Flame pieces laying around that could actually work for her. And if you do, I highly recommend it, because it's not really that much worse than leaning into one way or the other. It's definitely not optimal, don't get me wrong, but if you have a character like Child or something who may have a lot of downtime, depending how you use him, then she's a really good character to swap on to you know, have that downtime be relieved by like another DPS, to where normal attacks are going to be dealing good damage, but also you don't need to have her on the field for her to be dealing a lot of damage and contributing to the team. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough. As I said, it's going to be it for the video, and I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. My name's Blossums, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.